I've had several paranormal experiences in my lifetime, both personally and professionally. I'm going to discuss the professional paranormal experiences in this story. I was a surgical technologist in labor and delivery for about 10 years, and I worked for a non-for-profit Catholic hospital for almost 4 out of those 10 years. When I first started in the department, 2 techs that had already worked there for a very long time, we'll call them M and J, and myself K. Well, M and J told me stories about Sister Mary Margaret, who was a surgery tech back when the hospital was still run by nuns. Needless to say, Sister Mary Margaret was very much by the book and left little room for her coworkers' errors. Jay knew about Sister Mary Margaret, but M had worked there for so long that she'd actually worked with the nun. M began to tell tales about instances when she'd heard Sister Mary Margaret in the OR long after she'd passed, and up to current time frame. Being born a skeptic, I thought M and J were just hazing the new girl. I wasn't buying a bit of their nonsense. Well, fast forward to when I'm off orientation and working my 12-hour night shifts, I'd be in the back, setting up the OR suite or stocking supplies, and I could hear the shuffle of shoe covers. Well, you know how high heels make that click-clack sound? There is a very distinct sound that shoe covers make when they shuffle along the hospital floor. I just sleuthed it out and figured that M and or J had put one of the night shift nurses up to pranking me, just to see if I'd fall for it. Well, I just had to hop out there, catch them in the act, and let them know that they weren't fooling anybody. So, I popped out into the hallway, ready to scare the scrub pants off of whoever was pranking me. But when I jumped out in the hallway, no one was there. There was no movement in the hallway, swinging of the doors, chatter on the intercoms, nothing. Needless to say, I was perplexed. So, that first instant just kinda got a shrug from me, and I went on working. As time passed, these incidents became more and more frequent. We had more new employees, and M and J were training them. M and her new orientee had an incident where sterile supplies were on the OR bed, and a bulb syringe floated from the top of the supply pile and went to about a 90-degree angle for about a minute, and then just dropped to the floor. I really began believing them when they relayed that story to me during report. I could tell that they were both honestly shaken up by the ordeal, and I had actually felt pretty bad for them. They were scared. Trust me, these two were not actresses, and there was no way they could have given such an Oscar-worthy performance. I continued having my own encounters with shuffling shoe covers, unintelligible whisperings, all the hallmarks of a typical haunting. Some of my tech coworkers continued reporting the same kind of activity. None of the activity was as egregious as what M and her orientee experienced with the floating bulb syringe in midair. When this all stopped being amusing to me was when I went to the OR suite at about 2:30 to 3 a.m. to stock linens and sterile water and saline into the warmers. I'd done this hundreds of times by now. It wasn't anything new for me. For those of you who are not familiar with hospital warmers, they are equivalent to leaving the hospital and going straight to Narnia. These miraculous inventions are what makes your hospital blankets so nice and toasty. We also put sterile water and saline in the top portions of the warmer to heat up liquids used externally so that patients don't get hypothermic. Well, to give you a visual, it literally looks like an industrial-sized stainless steel refrigerator. It performs in the same way, except instead of making everything cold, it warms everything up, thus, the hospital warmer. I had taken the linen cart, some water, and saline bottles with me to stock everything up. I left the cart in the hallway outside of our 2 surgical suites. The warmer was in between both OR suites in a little cubby beside our crash cart. As you probably already very well know, hospitals are known for migraine-inducing bright light. This was one of those few things that I disliked about working in a hospital. Whenever I was able, I'd spare the blinding fluorescent lights as much as possible. So, I proceeded to stock the warmer without turning the lights on to spare myself the glare whenever I could. The OR suites were darkened and shadowy, but I could easily see to get around. I'm sure everyone already familiar with refrigerator freezers is already aware that refrigerator part is pretty cold, and the freezer part obviously is frozen cold. The warmers at a hospital basically work the same way. The, quote, refrigerator part warms the blankets instead of being cold, while the freezer part makes the external water and saline bottles very toasty. That's exactly what we want, so I open the refrigerator part and expect to be hit with this, arid heat. But it was cold. Wait, what? Is it broken? It has to be. There's no way this warmer could be this cold. Something is not right here. Then, I also checked the, quote, freezer portion, which should have been even hotter. But it was actually colder. No, this isn't right. It was not normal for this warmer to be this cold. The fans were blowing warm air, it just wasn't warming anything up. It was then that I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. I'd never felt that way at this job previously. I turned around and looked up to see a black mist or smoke towards the top of the ceiling. At first, I thought maybe some of the parts of the warmer's electric had fizzled out and this was the beginning of a fire. The problem was, this black mist was on the ceiling and in the opposite corner of the warmer. I looked at the warmer's connections and everything was as it was supposed to be. There was nothing wrong with the warmer, but there was definitely something wrong in that OR suite cubby. And it was definitely something that was not friendly, and rather malevolent actually. I knew it wasn't Sister Mary Margaret, she'd never do anything menacing. I can't explain how, but I knew that not only was it not her, I also knew that she wasn't there to help protect me from whatever this was. It was slowly seeping down from the corner of the ceiling towards myself and the warmer. I did what seemed to be the most sensible thing, and I began reciting the Lord's Prayer. It paused full stop. As I continued, it literally looked like a film being played in reverse. It slinked back to the corner where it came from. As soon as it was just about gone, I turned and hustled out of that little cubby area and back to the hallway. I happened to notice, when I turned around to face the warmer, it was back to its normal, toasty temperatures. I didn't ruminate on it for too long. I just booked it out of that OR suite, and back to the hallway, and then back to the nurse's station. I, until this very story, never said anything to anyone. I didn't mention my experience to my coworkers, friends, not even my family. I honestly didn't want to be ridiculed. I just feel that this is a story I'm no longer compelled to keep to myself. There was no harm in sharing it now, right? I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for listening. It was the year 2018. My best friend and I were getting more adventurous as our senior year continued. We would stay out late, smoking weed, and walking around the various neighborhoods, or high-riding. Two young 18-year-old girls. My best friend Julia is about 5'5" and brown hair with blue eyes. Then me being about 5'9", blonde hair, also with blue eyes. Most would think that we were absolutely stupid for doing some of the reckless things that we did. Yet, we did not care. We craved the adrenaline, and we were both a bit disturbed due to some trauma that we'd experienced as individuals. Fear did not exist at the time, as we had been through enough scary situations to be numb to the idea of fear. Now, at the time, it was close to the end of the school year, and honestly, our parents stopped paying attention to us. I was home alone, and my best friend and I were left to do whatever we wanted most days and nights. That is when the idea of urban exploration became our new favorite thing to do. We'd explored all over our town in New Jersey and surrounding towns. Although, we could not find a building that was daring enough for us thrill seekers. After searching YouTube for a couple days, that's when we found it. The holy grail of abandoned buildings near us. Only about 30 minutes from us into Pennsylvania. It was an old abandoned school that was home to delinquent children. After doing some personal research on the school, I came to find out that the school was closed due to a fire that killed one student and a teacher. Although, after visiting the school a couple times, something told me that several way more sinister things had happened on the grounds of this school. There were about 25 buildings, so it took more than 6 times searching to really get an absolute full experience of this school. On campus was a security guard who drove around in a blacked out Jeep. He would never get out of his car. Only once did he ever catch us, although he just told us to leave. Again, never leaving his car. I wonder if he had the same feeling about the place as we did, and that he found sanctuary never leaving his car. Since there were so many times we visited, I'm only going to highlight the most terrifying moments we'd experienced. Of course, from least to most blood-curdling. To give you the ambience of what we were facing, I will tell you this. To get into the campus, you needed to cut through trees, bushes, and thorns. Always wear pants when exploring. After you get through that brush, hopefully unscathed, you're greeted by the several decaying buildings. You're also greeted by the smell of mold and nature. It all kinda hits you at once. Although everything there was overgrown and seriously falling apart, graffiti is pretty much plastered everywhere. Besides the physical look, the gut-wrenching feeling you get when you walk foot on this property, that alone will make you want to turn back and never set foot there again. Something about this place is seriously wrong, and you feel as though you should not be there. Something I came personally to learn about this place is every time that you go back, things seem to get more and more out of place and otherworldly. Walking into the buildings, most of the windows are boarded up, so you can only see using the small light on your phone. Other than that, it is pitch black. The first truly terrifying moment I had on this campus had to be finding the blood-chilling room where it looked as though it was an old dentist office or something medical. I'm not entirely sure why it was there or what they really did there, but when I walked in, I got this strange feeling of death. Scattered in the pitch-black room, all I could see was open syringes covering the floor, a dentist chair that had some sort of dried red substance on it resembling blood, and everything else in the room was untouched. As my best friend and I explored this small, dark room, we began to hear footsteps coming from down the dark corridor. Trying to rationalize the noise, we automatically assumed it was the security guard and ran in the opposite direction, back out the small window that we came in from in the other room. Upon reaching outside, we hid behind some coverage and waited quite a bit of time. We did not hear the noise again, nor did anyone come out. The next time we came, we decided to try and find the building that contained an old game room in it. Since we'd explored pretty much most of the other buildings, we figured which one it was most likely to be. Searching the perimeter for any way in and checking doors, we could not find a way in. Circling back, I found an old, dirty window which looked as if it had opened to a dark cement basement. Being the little badasses that we were, I jumped through it almost immediately. Now, the first thing that we saw as we walked out of the closet window was a wide open basement. With further analysis, we realized just how scary this basement was. The only thing down here besides it being absolutely freezing in mid-May was an old worn fireplace. Written above the fireplace was something demonic, or like demon worshippers had written it. Several pentagrams were graffitied. Looking towards the middle of the floor, there was a red paint pentagram. A very big red paint pentagram smack dab in the middle of the floor. Candle wax was everywhere, and it was accompanied by a strange smell. With the sense of existential dread suffocating the room, we darted towards the steps at the back of the room. We did not step foot in that basement ever again. The second to last time visiting the campus, we decided to go and be even more ballsy and explored it at night. It was roughly 12, maybe slightly later, and again, it was simply just my best friend Julia and I. Besides it being dark approaching the school, my blood ran cold. Everything in my body was telling me to run the other way and to not step foot back at this campus. Yet again, I ignored my gut instinct, and we began our journey through the woods to make it into the campus. Tonight was different, though. I decided to actually document our journey as if we were on Ghost Hunters or some other paranormal show. The whole time I was recording, I would go back and forth from me to what I was seeing and Julia. As me and Julia began walking through the pitch black using only her phone light, visibility was very dim. We could see as much as maybe 7 feet in front of us. The rest of this campus had been like it was not even there. It was just utter blackness that surrounded us. I was laughing and talking to my audience on my Instagram story, boasting about our trip as if it made me the coolest person ever to risk my life just to see some buildings filled with asbestos, mold, and possibly homeless people. Just as I turned the camera to face Julia and sort of interviewed her about her current experience, is when I saw something that made my heart stop and my jaw drop. I froze in the position that I was in, just holding the camera, pointing it in Julia's direction. As Julia looked past my camera, almost questioning why I got so quiet, she saw my face. The viewers at home could only see Julia's expression. And that said more to the people at home than either of us could explain. Seeing how absolutely horrified I was and how my face had just turned the lightest shade it could possibly get, she let out a scream and grabbed my arm, pulling me into a different direction. I felt as if I was no longer present and my adrenaline had taken over my body. My legs were moving, yet it felt like I wasn't in control of them. We jumped and hid behind a tree. As Julia pleaded with me to tell her what I had seen, for a couple minutes I just sat there, trying to process what I had just seen. I did not want to believe anything scary or paranormal could be real. It felt like a true scary movie come to life. When I regained my ability to speak, I told her exactly what I saw. When I tell you, you most likely will not believe me, for it is so utterly insane that it's almost laughable. But that image will never leave my memory, for it is burned in there forever. Standing right behind Julia, just in the shot of my camera, was a black, large figure. With a closer look, I remember not believing what I had saw, and becoming what felt like paralysis as I was stuck staring at this figure standing only 3 feet behind my best friend. It was a man on a large horse, and from what I could make out, there was no detail to him at all. Like he had literally just been a shadow, just a blacked out figure. The worst part was his large, broad body seemed as if it had no head. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, it absolutely was. I had heard stories of the Headless Horseman as a kid, yet I never expected to see anything like that in my waking hours of the day. After telling my best friend what I had seen, we hightailed it back to Jersey and decided to do some more research and see if anyone had any similar experiences, or even the same one. As we searched, I found countless of stories that made my bones hurt about this place and what other urban explorers had lived. One in particular made me literally almost faint. To be brief, This guy, who was really big into exploring, found this place years back and decided, like us, he wanted to keep coming back and see everything that the campus had to offer. He explained how every single time he came back, weirder and weirder things happened to him, which, to my knowledge, was exactly how I felt. But what he said next made my soul sink into the floor. He explained that the last time he decided to go was at night. Then he explained how, in front of the red house, he had been chased off-site by a headless horseman. My stomach sank. I went right back to the live video I had taken and watched it back. The part in which Julia looks at my horrified face. Directly in the background sat the old decaying red house, half burnt down. My jaw dropped. We did not visit this place for a couple of weeks. I would love to say that I learned my lesson and that this was the end of the story, but I would be lying. After a couple weeks had passed, our urge to visit the campus grew to an insane level, almost as if something was pulling us back, like we had strings attached to our body. Being the reckless kids that we were, we decided that 12 was not scary enough. Let's go at the devil's hour. Yeah, that's right. We went at 3 a.m. Now, as we walk towards the woods, we need to cut through a thick fog that appeared out of nowhere. If you think that wasn't enough to scare us away, you're absolutely right. I led the pack and proceeded towards a gap in the trees. As I am about 10 feet ahead of my two friends, I noticed some movement coming from the trees. We were not alone. Thinking who else may be out at 3 o'clock in the morning, I started shifting backwards, alerting my friends as I slowly backpedaled. Just as my friends looked in my direction, a deer came running right out towards us. Before it had reached me, it stopped dead in its tracks, 2 feet away. Now, this was like no deer I had ever seen. Again, I felt myself with short-term paralysis, as I felt like I was staring directly into the devil's eyes. The mist completely surrounds the deer-like animal, to the point I could not even see its feet. That's when I noticed its eyes glowing a weird yellow-red color. None of this seemed normal. That's when I noticed my friends booking it back towards the street. Not wanting to be alone with this creature, I ran as fast as I could and eventually caught up with them. None of us wanted to admit how truly spooked we were, so we decided to try to find another entrance. Walking down the side of the road that followed next to the campus, we began to keep walking straight, occasionally looking for another opening. We then decided that at the other end of the road, the campus had a church. It sat on an open field. Thinking that this was the safest way in, we kept walking down this road at 3:30 in the morning now, with absolutely no streetlights. It felt like we had been walking forever, and small talk was at a minimum due to us all low-key being scared shitless. That's when I heard it. We were almost to the church, and it was about a quarter mile away, but that's when the sound of a chainsaw rang out in all of our ears, sending chills down our spines. A chainsaw has a very distinct sound, yet in order to keep them faithful to the mission, I said, "Hey, maybe it's a generator." Assuming they agreed with me, I proceeded walking towards the strange noise. Suddenly, the sound of speeding footsteps broke my concentration. Only they were headed away from me rather than towards me. This is when the fear really hit me. My friends were so far away from me, panic began to set in. I was only brave if I had my friends there, easing my anxiety. The second I noticed them running, my heart sank. The chainsaw grew louder and more aggressive. I am downright sweating at this point. Finally, my instincts kick in, and I bolt towards my friends, somehow catching up with them almost immediately. We all decided to go home since it felt like the campus was doing everything in its power to keep us out. To this day, I'm not sure what lurked past those trees, but I'm not willing to ever go back to find out. Just remember, if you decide to go urban exploring, never go alone. And always follow your gut, for you never know what your animal instincts could be protecting you from. Hey guys, Cryptic Chill here. I'm gonna share one of my own stories now. So, this last story kinda sparked one to come to mind. So, I'm a paranormal investigator, as well as an urban explorer. I even started my own paranormal investigation team. This came to mind after reading this last story. There is a place in Maryland that I will not give you the name for because it is extremely dangerous to go there. And it's not just because of the fact that it's, decaying. This place is 100% bona fide haunted. It used to be an old tuberculosis sanatorium that rumor has it was also turned into a mental institution. I could never find any proof that it was a mental institution, but it would not surprise me if it had been. Anyway, there's one building on site. This is called the Children's Ward. Now, obviously, this is where they housed all the kids that had tuberculosis and treated them there. This is where most of my experiences have taken place, is in this building. I'm gonna tell you something right now. If you ever go urban exploring, never go alone. Do not do what I did. Especially being a seasoned investigator, I should have known better, but apparently I did not. Anyway, I go to this place, and the moment I drive over the border to the campus, I immediately feel something is off. I just get an overwhelming sense of dread and death. It felt like this entire place was trying to be as off-putting as it can get to get me out of there. Another thing, if you get this feeling, listen to your gut. Do not go. If you feel something's off, do not go. I didn't listen. I get there. I ended up at the Children's Ward. Moment I walk through the door, it smells like death in here. And I just kept pushing on. I was like, okay, whatever, it's fine. We'll be fine. Don't do that. I'm gonna probably say that about 4 more times. Never go alone. Anyway, I'm walking through the first floor, just trying to, get experiences and end up on the second floor. I'm sitting down on the second floor, and I'm talking, trying to get, responses. I've got an EVP device set up. I've got thermal imaging. I've got K2 meters, EMF detectors. I'm fully loaded. The only thing I didn't have is the DVR system because this place had no power. And being by myself, I didn't want to set up the generator. I'm sitting there, and I ask, if there's anybody here with me, can you give me a sign? Next thing I know, The door is off to my right. I'm facing towards the window. My back is against the wall that the door is in. A chair comes flying from the hallway, hits the wall, and clatters to the floor. Anybody who's a paranormal investigator knows my next question. Because without thinking, 9 out of 10 times you go, if that was you, can you do it again without thinking? I did not ask that question. I instead asked, is this your sign that you want me to leave? That's when I hear laughter coming from the hallway. I took that as that was my sign to leave. As I'm leaving, I go to go down the stairs. I hit the bottom step, and I feel 2 hands on my back push me forward. I ended up hitting the floor face first. Quickly got up, brushed myself off, and got out of the building. Now, this was after another experience, which I'm going to explain. Me and one of my other investigators go to the site. Same building. We go into the children's ward. By this point, first floor had already been covered pretty good by me and him. We go up to the second floor. Same room I walk into. I said, hey, I'm gonna go in this room. You wanna come with? I thought I heard him turn around and follow me in. I didn't look. All of a sudden, I hear noise coming from the next room over. Sounds like talking, but I can't make it out. The moment I turn around to go, Bud, do you hear that? I turn around and there's a black mass just standing in front of me. The moment the words leave my mouth, you're not my investigator. I don't remember anything from this point to the point I'm picking myself up at my other investigator's feet. Through the wall, there is a giant me-shaped hole in the wall. He looks down at me and goes, dude, are you okay? That looked like it hurt. Oh yeah, it hurt. Time to go? Gee, no shit, you fucking think? We quickly got me up. I brushed myself off, made sure all my body parts were still attached. Because this was one of those, it hurt so bad, I had to make sure everything was still on me. And we start leaving. Moment we hit the first floor, we're getting ready to go out the door. We hear a maniacal laughter coming from the second floor. And footsteps coming down the steps. We quickly ducked out the door, ran back to my car, got in it, and left. This place has tried to draw me back so many times, and I keep going back because I am an investigator. That's what I do. I want to learn more about the paranormal. My team does not charge to investigate. We do it because we feel that you should be able to be comfortable on your own property. And I promise you, this is not a promotion for my team, because you guys probably will not know my name, much less my team's name, anytime soon. But that just tells you who we are as a team. Me and several of my investigators keep going back, and we keep wanting to go back. It keeps drawing us back, to the point that I've had phone calls from the defunct number of this place. Back when it was operational, the number is no longer in service. Hasn't been for decades. But I keep getting calls from it. And I've picked up a couple times, and each time it's trying to use somebody that is close to me to voice mimic to get me back there. I say all this to say, if your gut tells you not to go somewhere or not to go back somewhere, listen to it. These stories could have ended so much worse. And these are only part of the stories I have from this place. There are a lot. But anyway, on to story number 4. This story happened in October of 2004, back when I was still in my 3rd year of high school. Me and my friends stuck around the school late at night after our annual Halloween party. We had agreed to try out my friend's Ouija board. It wasn't the brightest idea, but we needed a thrill. We found a nice spot under a huge gnarl tree and proceeded with our half-assed ritual. There were 5 of us, 2 boys and 3 girls. We were all expecting some kind of paranormal contact. Rumors had it, our school was haunted, but we've never really experienced anything firsthand. And it was Halloween. That's when all the spirits came out to play. We all wanted to get spooked. Also, we've never seen a Ouija board firsthand, so we were pretty excited. Our school was an old Spanish colonial house, built in the 1800s, when the Spaniards still occupied the Philippines. We were in a section of the school that doesn't get used very often, located beside a creepy old house. People only go there when they needed to use the restroom, store equipment in one of the sheds, or make out with their boyfriends or girlfriends. We sat down in the middle of an open space with only an exposed bare bulb nearby, illuminating our surroundings. We were all having a laugh, scaring each other with what-if scenarios, and it was your typical dumb kids doing dumb things type of thing. My friend who bought the Ouija board proceeded to place it in the middle of our circle. If I remember correctly, it was the glow-in-the-dark version, which we found hilarious, but it gave us the ability to see what was written in the dark. Not knowing what else to do, and going off of what we'd seen in movies, we all proceeded to place our index fingers on the top of the planchette. We sat there looking at each other until one of us said, "What's next?" We didn't know if there was a proper way to start these rituals. Plus, the board didn't come with any instructions, so we just decided to throw in a question. "Is anyone there?" I called out into the darkness. "If there are spirits living here, please talk to us," one of the girls joined in. We clearly had no idea what we were doing. Still, nothing. Not even the slightest bit of wind. One of my friends jerked the planchette, and the girl who bought the Ouija board screamed, breaking the silence. We all laughed at how ridiculous it was. After a bit of joking around, we decided to give it another go. We all placed our index fingers back on the planchette once more and asked, "If there's anyone there, we would like to make contact." "Don't break the circle," one of my friends jokingly said. "Shut up," I whispered. We were just about ready to give it up when the wind started to pick up, the stillness broke, and the darkness around us seemed to move. Just a coincidence, we thought. "Okay, don't break the circle," I yelled out. "Is anyone there?" I was excited. It was like a scene from a movie, with dirt and dead leaves swirling around us. "Guys, I'm scared," my friend sitting beside me said. "My mom warned me never to play with forces that we don't know." "Did you die here? Were you killed during the war? Are you the headless priest that roams these halls? Do you know Jose Rizal, our nation hero? Are you a hottie?" My friend giggled. At this point, we were all throwing random, stupid questions. Nothing. "This is bullshit," I don't want to do this anymore, my friend said, exasperated. We were all thinking the same. Just then, a group of dogs from the neighboring houses started barking at us through the chain link fence. These 6 dogs were all growling and showing teeth. We all screamed and, without finishing the ritual, bolted right out of there. We didn't see each other until after the Halloween break. And this is where the story gets creepy. One of the girls told us about a weird experience she had the night after playing with the Ouija board. She had gotten home late after hanging out with her friends from the neighborhood, when she realized she forgot her keys to the house. So, she called a brother up, who was still sharing a room with her, and what he said crept the hell out of her. He swore that she was already home. He claimed to have seen her walk in a while ago, and that she looked really tired and saw her head straight to bed. Creepy, but no need to freak ourselves out, was all we thought. Besides, her brother must have just been tired and seeing things. But then, one of my other friends started telling us about an encounter that she had that Halloween night. She was going up to her room when the lights started flickering as she was ascending the staircase. You know, your typical horror movie visuals. Shrug it off to faulty wiring, but just then, she saw the door to her room open, and a dark figure stepped out and stood atop of their staircase. She couldn't make out the entity's face, but she recounted that she couldn't move and felt utter dread as the figure stared down at her. "No way," my friend who just joined in the conversation said in disbelief. "Something happened to me as well." He recalled that he was sleeping one night, and when he woke up, feeling really uncomfortable, he described his vision as having TV-like static and a feeling of heaviness surrounding him. He looked around the room, and that's when he saw a bloody, charred face with piercing red eyes grinning at him through the window. I couldn't believe what I was hearing because I almost had a run-in with death that night. After the ritual, I was sleeping in our sedan on the way home after fooling around with the Ouija board. When I felt our car jerk, I woke up instantly looking out the window. I found out that we'd been hit by a huge oil tanker. I panicked and leapt out of the car. Luckily, my mom and I survived the crash since the front of our car was a total wreck. I still don't have any explanation why those things happened to us, but thank God nothing happened after that. I never played or gotten near a Ouija board ever since. Hey guys, welcome back to the HQ. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's stories. I had a lot of fun telling them. I even got to tell one of my own, which was really cool. If you guys want to hear more about some of the experiences I've had as a paranormal investigator, I can certainly give you some. Just let me know. I've been doing this for years now. I've been investigating the paranormal since I was about 14. And I started my team when I turned 16. So I've got quite a few stories, ranging from Antietam, Gettysburg, the tuberculosis sanatorium, several mental institutions that I've investigated, to even houses, because we do work for residential primarily. That's primarily what my team was created for. I've dealt with things from standard, intelligent and residual hauntings, to elementals, to hell, demonic. Which, demonic is rare. But if you guys want to hear more about that, let me know down below. Anyway, I'll see y'all in the next one. Be prepared. Glenmont's coming out tomorrow. Well, Glenmont Part 2. Anyway, see y'all.